I was your typical software engineer with what I thought was a perfect life. For 8 years, Amanda and I built what I believed was an unbreakable marriage. When new neighbors moved in across the street last summer, I was genuinely excited to welcome them to our friendly neighborhood. Jason seemed like a nice enough guy at first, though something about the way Amanda looked at him made my stomach knot. I ignored that feeling, trusting in our bond. Before I tell you how my world fell apart, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever felt that gut-wrenching moment when trust begins to crumble. Amanda and I met during our junior year at University of Michigan. I still remember the first time I saw her in our advanced programming class. She was the only woman in a room full of awkward computer science guys, and she outshined us all with her intelligence and confidence. I spent 3 weeks working up the courage to ask her for coffee, and to my surprise, she said yes. Our relationship moved quickly after that. We graduated together, landed jobs at neighboring tech firms in Austin, and got married in a small ceremony by Lake Travis with just our closest friends and family. Those first few years were everything I had dreamed of when thinking about married life. We bought a modest home in a nice suburb, established our careers, and created routines that made our life together comfortable and secure. By our 8th anniversary, we had finally saved enough for a down payment on our dream house in a more upscale neighborhood. It was everything we wanted. A spacious, open floor plan. A gourmet kitchen for Amanda, who loved to cook, and a dedicated office space for my occasional work-from-home days. The moment we signed those mortgage papers, Amanda squeezed my hand and said, "This is where we will start our family." We had been talking about having kids for years, and it seemed like everything was finally falling into place. Looking back, I should have noticed the small changes in our relationship. Our intimate moments had become less frequent, often going weeks without any physical connection. Amanda started staying later at the office, and I found myself working longer hours too. But I dismissed these as normal ebbs and flows in a long-term relationship. We were just busy professionals establishing our careers, saving for our future. That is what I told myself. Everything changed when Jason Taylor moved into the house across the street. He was different from the other neighbors in our family-oriented community, mostly older couples or young families with kids. Jason was single, probably in his early 30s, with the kind of confident swagger that turned heads. He mentioned at our neighborhood barbecue that he owned a boutique fitness studio downtown. That barbecue was the first time I noticed something off. Amanda, usually reserved at these gatherings, was unusually animated talking to Jason. Her laugh seemed different, higher-pitched, more girlish. She kept touching her hair and leaning into their conversation. I remember Gordon, our next-door neighbor, raising his eyebrows at me across the yard. I just shrugged it off. Amanda was friendly with everyone. That was one of the things I loved about her. Within weeks, Amanda started making changes to her routine. She began waking up at 5 in the morning to work out before her commute. She overhauled our pantry, replacing our normal groceries with organic everything and protein supplements. She bought new workout clothes and started wearing makeup more often, even on weekends when we typically lounged around the house in sweats. I was actually proud of her new health kick. I even bragged to my coworkers about how dedicated my wife was to fitness. When she mentioned she had signed up for personal training sessions at a new gym, I encouraged her. I never once connected these changes to Jason moving in. I trusted Amanda completely. The first real sign of trouble came about 2 months after Jason arrived. Amanda and I were watching a movie when her phone kept lighting up with text notifications. When she got up to use the bathroom, I glanced at her phone screen out of habit. Multiple messages from J Fitness with laughing emojis and what looked like an inside joke about something that happened earlier that day. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself to relax. They were neighbors. Amanda had mentioned she was considering training at his studio. This was probably just friendly business communication. When she returned, I casually asked, "You have been mentioning Jason a lot lately. Are you training at his gym now?" She picked up her phone quickly, her smile faltering just slightly. "Oh, he has been giving me some nutrition advice. His studio is actually too far from my office for regular sessions, but he has been super helpful with my fitness goals." I nodded and turned back to the movie, but something about her quick explanation did not sit right. That night I found it hard to sleep, wondering why she had saved his number as J Fitness instead of just Jason, like all her other contacts. As weeks passed, the signs became harder to ignore. Amanda started coming home later from work, always with a different explanation. A project deadline. Traffic. Drinks with coworkers. Her weekend routine changed too. Suddenly, she needed to run errands alone, spend hours at the mall shopping for work, clothes, or meet her girlfriends for brunch that somehow lasted until dinner. One Tuesday evening, I got home early from work and decided to surprise Amanda by starting dinner. I called her office to ask what time she would be home, only to have her assistant tell me she had left at 3 that afternoon for a doctor appointment. When I called her cell, she answered with background noise that sounded like a restaurant. She seemed startled. When I asked where she was, quickly saying she was grabbing coffee after her appointment and would be home soon. That night, as she showered, I did something I had never done before. I checked her location history on her Google account that we shared for family tracking. There was no doctor office in her timeline, but there was a 2-hour stop at an address I did not recognize. When I searched it, my blood ran cold. It was an address just 2 blocks from Jason's studio. I still wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe she was embarrassed about seeing a specialist. Maybe she was planning a surprise for our upcoming anniversary. I clung to these possibilities because the alternative was too painful to consider. The final straw came a week later. Amanda told me she would be working late again, but as I was driving home from my own late meeting, I took a detour through Jason's neighborhood on a strange impulse. There, parked on the street half a block from his house, was Amanda's silver Audi. It was 8:30 at night. I drove around the block twice, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I considered knocking on his door, but feared what I might find. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. Suddenly, she needed to run errands alone, spend hours at the mall shopping for work, clothes, or meet her girlfriends for brunch that somehow lasted until dinner. One Tuesday evening, I got home early from work and decided to surprise Amanda by starting dinner. I called her office to ask what time she would be home, only to have her assistant tell me she had left at 3 that afternoon for a doctor appointment. This project is killing me. I barely had time to eat. The lie hung in the air between us. I took a deep breath and said, "That is interesting, because I saw your car at Jason's place tonight." The color drained from Amanda's face. For a moment she froze, then quickly composed herself. "Why were you checking up on me? Are you spying now?" Her immediate deflection told me everything I needed to know. No denial. No explanation. Just turning it back on me. "Stop lying, Amanda. I saw you leaving his house." "How long has this been going on?" "You are being ridiculous," she snapped. "Jason has been helping me with a fitness plan. We were reviewing my progress. Why are you turning this into something dirty? At 10 o'clock at night? In his house? Do you think I am stupid?" The argument escalated quickly. Amanda's voice grew louder as her excuses became more elaborate. I remained eerily calm, which seemed to frustrate her even more. Finally, she exploded. "Maybe if you paid attention to me the way he does, I would not need to look elsewhere." The admission hung between us like a physical blow. She immediately tried to backtrack, claiming she did not mean it that way, but the damage was done. "I want the truth, Amanda. All of it. Now." Instead of answering, she grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard a framed photo of our wedding fell from the wall and shattered. I stood in our living room, surrounded by the broken glass, feeling like everything I believed about our marriage had been just as fragile. Amanda did not come home that night. She did not answer my calls or texts. Around 2 in the morning, desperate and sick with worry, despite everything, I drove past Jason's house again. Her car was there. When she finally returned home the next afternoon, she acted as if nothing significant had happened. She put her things away, started a load of laundry, and asked what I wanted for dinner. I stood in the kitchen doorway, unable to comprehend her behavior. "We need to talk about last night," I said. She sighed dramatically. "I think I need some space, Bruno. I have been feeling confined lately. Like I am missing out on really experiencing life." "What does that mean exactly?" She would not look me in the eye as she said, "I am thinking about taking a trip. For self-discovery. just a few weeks to clear my head and figure things out. Alone, I asked, already knowing the answer. Yes, alone, she said. Too quickly. Later that night, while Amanda was in the shower, I checked her email on our shared computer. There it was, an itinerary for two. To Hawaii, departing in 3 days. The reservation was under Jason's name, with Amanda listed as the second guest. A 1-month stay at a beachfront property in Maui. When I confronted her with the evidence, she did not even try to deny it anymore. I was going to tell you, she said weakly. This does not have to mean the end for us. I just need to explore this connection with Jason. It might be nothing, but I will resent you forever if I do not find out. You expect me to wait here while you go on vacation with another man, to test drive him, and see if you want to come back to your husband. You are making it sound so much worse than it is, she insisted. People in other countries have open marriages all the time. We do not have an open marriage, Amanda. We have a marriage that you are choosing to destroy. My pleas fell on deaf ears. How dot? My pleas. 2 days later, I stood in our bedroom doorway watching her pack bikinis and sundresses for her trip with Jason. When I asked her not to go one final time, she just said, I have to do this for me. The next morning, I drove her to the airport in silence. As she got out of the car, she leaned in to kiss my cheek. I turned away. Amanda, I said, my voice barely a whisper. If you get on that plane, do not expect me to be waiting when you come back. She hesitated for only a moment before wheeling her suitcase toward the terminal entrance where Jason was waiting with their tickets. The first week after Amanda left was the darkest of my life. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight, unable to function. I barely ate or slept, replaying our 8 years together in my mind, searching for signs I had missed. Had she always been capable of this level of betrayal, or had something fundamentally changed in her, in us? My phone became both my torture device and my lifeline. I compulsively checked Amanda's social media, watching as she posted pictures from their Hawaiian paradise. The first photo nearly broke me, her and Jason with their arms around each other on a white sand beach, the caption reading, "New adventures with this one," as if our marriage was just some chapter she had finished reading. The comments under her posts were what finally broke me out of my daze. Friends from our shared circle, leaving heart emojis and comments like, "You deserve this happiness, and he is so cute." People we had socialized with for years, who had been guests in our home, celebrating her affair publicly. I finally called my best friend from college, Miguel, who lived in Houston. His reaction told me everything. "Man, I am so sorry," he said, his voice heavy with guilt. "I heard rumors, but I did not want to be the one to tell you." Rumors. How long has this been going on? The silence on the phone was deafening before he answered. People started talking a couple of months ago. Amanda and this guy were spotted together at restaurants at his gym. A few people thought you might have separated already, and just were not telling anyone. The humiliation burned worse than the betrayal. I had been the last to know that my own wife was having an affair. The thought of our friends discussing my failing marriage behind my back while I remained oblivious made me physically ill. 2 weeks into Amanda Hawaiian adventure, something in me shifted. I woke up, and instead of reaching for my phone to check her latest posts, I deleted my social media apps. I called my boss and apologized for my absence, explaining I was going through a divorce and needed to get my life in order. The word divorce felt strange coming out of my mouth, but as soon as I said it, I knew it was the only path forward. I could not be someone's backup plan waiting to see if their affair fizzled out so she could settle for returning to me. I contacted a divorce attorney that day and began documenting everything I knew about the affair. I forwarded the email with the Hawaii reservation. I saved screenshots of her social media posts that proved she was there with Jason. I made a list of witnesses who had seen them together before she left. The lawyer recommended I change the locks on our house, which felt both extreme and necessary. She also suggested I begin separating our finances, which led to another devastating discovery. Amanda had withdrawn nearly $15,000 from our joint savings account the day before leaving for Hawaii. With the divorce proceedings in motion, I turned my attention to myself. I found a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma. In our first session, I broke down, completely admitting I still loved Amanda despite everything. The therapist gently suggested that what I loved was who I thought Amanda was, not who she had revealed herself to be. Those words became my mantra as I began rebuilding. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage, many of whom Amanda had subtly discouraged me from seeing. Miguel drove up from Houston and spent a weekend helping me renovate our bedroom. We painted over the sage green walls Amanda had insisted on with a deep blue that had always been my preference. We replaced the decorative pillows, the curtains, the bedding, everything that reminded me of her. I joined a local gym nowhere near Jason's studio and began working with a personal trainer 3 times a week. The physical exertion helped me sleep at night, and slowly my appetite returned. I focused on my work, taking on challenging projects that required my full attention, and pushing for a promotion I had previously declined because Amanda thought it would require too much travel. By the time Amanda was scheduled to return, I barely recognized our house or myself. I had lost 15 pounds, gained noticeable muscle definition, and bought an entirely new wardrobe. The house had been transformed room by room, with all traces of Amanda relegated to boxes in the garage awaiting her return. I did not expect her to come back early, but she did exactly 1 week before her scheduled return. I came home from work to find her sitting on our porch, looking tanned but somehow diminished. When she saw me, her eyes widened, taking in my changed appearance. "Bruno," she said, her voice breaking, "I made a terrible mistake." I unlocked the door and let her inside. She stopped in the entryway, staring at the transformed living room. "What happened to our house?" "This is my house now," I said calmly. "Your things are packed in the garage." Her face crumpled. "Please just let me explain. Jason, he met someone else at the resort. A yoga instructor. He ended things 3 days ago. It made me realize what I was throwing away with you. With us. The pathetic irony might have broken me a month earlier. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. I was not her choice. I was her backup plan, her safety net when her fantasy collapsed. "I have something for you," I said, retrieving an envelope from my desk. I handed it to her, watching as she opened it to find the divorce papers my lawyer had prepared. "You have been served." Amanda stared at the divorce papers in disbelief, her hands shaking. "You cannot be serious," she whispered. "We have 8 years together. You would throw that away without even trying to work through this. You threw it away when you got on that plane." I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "Actually, no. You threw it away long before that, when you first started sneaking around with Jason. It was a mistake, Bruno. People make mistakes." She was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "We can go to counseling. We can rebuild the trust. Many marriages survive affairs. I do not want a marriage that survives. I want one that thrives," I said. "And I deserve better than someone who sees me as an option." Amanda stayed that night, sleeping in our guest room. Over the next week, she launched a full campaign to change my mind. She cooked elaborate meals, wore the lingerie that had been untouched in her drawer for months, and left handwritten notes around the house listing reasons she loved me. When those tactics failed, she escalated. She contacted my parents, who called me concerned about my decision to give up on the marriage. She reached out to our mutual friends, spinning a story about how she had made one mistake and I was being unreasonable. Some of them actually called me, suggesting I was overreacting. The final straw came when she showed up at my office, unannounced, causing a scene in front of my colleagues. She was crying, pleading with me to come home early so we could talk. My boss, thankfully understanding, allowed me to leave, but the embarrassment of that moment crystallized my resolve. That evening, I laid down clear boundaries. The divorce is happening. Amanda, you need to accept that. You have 2 weeks to find a new place to live. I will be fair in the settlement, but this marriage is over. How can you be so cold? She asked. What happened to, for better or worse? You broke those vows, not me, I responded. And I am not being cold. I am protecting myself from more pain. Despite her protests, the divorce proceedings moved forward. Amanda finally moved out, though. She continued her attempts to reconcile with texts, emails, and occasional drop-ins with flimsy excuses. Each time I remained firm. Each rejection seemed to make her more determined, as if my refusal to take her back had turned me into a prize to be won rather than a husband to be cherished. My lawyer warned me to document all her attempts at contact as they bordered on harassment. I did not want to get a restraining order against the woman I had once planned to raise children with, but I came close several times. Meanwhile, I continued building my new life. I sold the house we had shared, unable to fully exorcise the ghosts of our relationship from those walls. I bought a modern condo downtown, closer to my work and the vibrant city life I had always enjoyed, but had compromised on for Amanda's suburban preferences. The promotion I had been working toward came through, along with a substantial raise. I traveled to San Francisco, New York, and even Tokyo for work, sending my parents postcards from each destination. My mother noted during one phone call that I sounded happier than I had in years. I started dating again casually, at first. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with interesting women I met through friends or dating apps. I was transparent about my recent divorce, which some women saw as a red flag and others accepted as part of my story. I found myself drawn to women who were passionate about their own careers and interests, who had full lives that they were inviting me into rather than looking for someone to complete them. The divorce was finalized 11 months after Amanda had left for Hawaii. The day I received the final decree, I took myself out for a steak dinner and a good bottle of whiskey, toasting to my freedom and the lessons I had learned. Life continued to improve. I developed new friendships through a hiking club and a coding workshop I joined. I tried new hobbies I had always been interested in but never pursued: rock climbing, motorcycle riding, and even improv comedy classes, which helped me develop a lighter perspective on life challenges. It was almost exactly a year after Amanda had left that I ran into them at a new restaurant downtown. Jason and Amanda were seated at a corner table, her hand resting on his arm, as he checked his phone, looking thoroughly disinterested. Neither of them noticed me until the hostess led my date and me to a table that required walking past them. Amanda's eyes widened with recognition, then darted to the attractive woman by my side. Jason looked up too, and I could see the moment he registered who I was. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Bruno, Amanda," said her voice, carrying that familiar, forced brightness. "How are you?" "I am great. Actually," I replied truthfully. I introduced my date, exchanged the expected pleasantries, and continued to our table without prolonging the awkward encounter. As we walked away, I realized something profound. I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no regret. Looking at Amanda and Jason, all I could feel was a vague pity. They both looked unhappy, caught in the consequences of their choices. Meanwhile, I had never felt more at peace. The experience crystallized the most important lesson I had learned through this painful chapter of my life. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to what you actually need. Amanda's betrayal had forced me to rediscover myself, to build a life aligned with my authentic desires, rather than compromising to maintain a relationship that ultimately did not serve either of us. I realized that true self-respect means refusing to be anyone's second choice or backup plan. It means having the courage to walk away from people who do not value you, even when walking away hurts. It means trusting that you deserve honesty and loyalty, and accepting nothing less. This journey also taught me about forgiveness, not for Amanda's sake, but for my own. Carrying anger and resentment would have kept me chained to the past, giving her continued power over my emotional life. By choosing to forgive without reconciliation, I freed myself to move forward unburdened. What was your most important relationship lesson? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. And if you know someone struggling with betrayal or difficult relationship decisions, share this video. It might give them the courage they need to choose themselves. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is leave, because they make space for what is truly meant for you.